Hey, all you home builders, John here, your friendly remote CPA, here to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart and something that takes a lot of my time on a daily basis. And this is your accounting relationship with subcontractors. So let's get into it. First of all, you need to have an agreement with your subcontractor, and it needs to be in writing, signed by qualified people at both companies. You don't want to be agreeing with the office manager. It needs to be legally binding. It can be on paper or an electronic method, but just make sure you scan any paper copies. And it needs to specify whether it pertains to one job or if it's going to be a blanket agreement for multiple jobs. So this is something I see often. People are so eager to get to work that they forget to have an agreement. And then later on down the road, we have situations where we're arguing because things were not spelled out in an agreement. So I know it takes a few extra minutes at the beginning of every job, or if possible, maybe you could get a template agreement that you can use across lots of different subcontractors. But it is so important. It will save you so much time later on because you won't have to spend arguing with someone that you want to work with. With that agreement, you also need some required documents in order to get started. From an accounting perspective, most importantly, we need the W-9. For anyone who is going to be providing services in any way, I recommend getting the W-9. Even if they have a legal entity that might not be subject to receiving a 1099, we still want to get that W-9 to evidence that exemption. If you wait until later on in the job, or especially if you wait until after you make the payment, you might not get the W-9, and that's kind of scary because you could be in violation of an important IRS regulation. The other thing that you want to make sure you have is the certificate of insurance, especially for liability and workers' compensation risk, because if something breaks on the job site, if they drop that $400 light or 400-pound light fixture on that beautiful granite countertop and it breaks, who's going to pay for that granite? Hopefully, it will be their insurance. And with workers' comp, they might be in a situation, depending on your state, where they could get an exemption. And even if they can, you still want to see that documentation as well. Within your agreement with your subcontractors, you also want to consider who's going to bear the costs of everything on the job. Some of these might be pretty basic, but it's best that they're specified in the agreement anyway. Materials, obviously, that can make or break your budget. So if you get halfway through the job and find out that they expect you to pay for all of their materials, that could have a significant adverse impact on your budget. So make sure that you spell those terms out within the agreement. Also, paying their employees, we want to make sure that they're on the hook for paying their own employees. We never want to be in a situation where they expected you to reimburse them for so-and-so's wages. Another important thing is rework. If they don't carry out the specifications, who is going to pay for that rework? Certainly, I hope it's not you as the home builder or contractor. They should be responsible for that rework. And then lastly, change orders. If the homeowner comes in and wants something done differently, ultimately it should be the homeowner who's bearing the cost of that change order. But let's make sure that the agreement spells out that process. And let's also make sure that we're not in a situation where the homeowner approaches the subcontractor directly and asks for a change order, and then you get hit with the bill before you have a signed change order from the homeowner. So those are very important situations that have made an adverse impact on some of my clients. Next, let's talk about timing and logistics. What should be spelled out in your agreement for these items? When is the work going to be completed? What timeline and schedule do you have lined up in Builder-Trend? And when is the subcontractor going to fit into that schedule? And how much leeway do they have? And what are the things that allow them to have leeway? For example, the siding installer, will you give them a grace period for weather? And what constitutes a bad weather day? Next, will the timing pertain to only one job or a blanket agreement to be used across multiple jobs? For example, do you expect them to have all of the siding installed in a 5-day period across all of your jobs? And then will they communicate with the homeowner, or will you want them to refrain from speaking to your client? That's important when we talked about the change order situation where we've had homeowners approach subcontractors directly and ask for a change order, and you never had a signed change order from that homeowner. And then at the end of the job, the homeowner is trying to push back on you for that change. So, what kind of communication is allowed between the subcontractor and the homeowner? When does the subcontractor need to start pulling you into the conversation? And then, how clean are they expected to keep the job site as they work? Do you want them to vacuum every day before they leave? Do you want them to take their tools with them? And do you want them to put all their trash in a designated area? Those are things that are best spelled out in the agreement and reinforced every time you revisit the agreement. Lastly, who is authorized to access the job site and when? Is there a code in your area that prevents work from happening before 7 a.m.? Are they allowed to work on evenings and weekends? And do they need an alarm code? All of these things are hopefully considered in your agreement with the subcontractor. And then will you require them to use Builder-Trend? We're seeing more and more of this. The home builder contractor is requiring all subcontractors to use Builder-Trend in order to streamline communication. It does make it easier to bid work, especially if you work with multiple subcontractors who do the same trade, which is recommended just in case there's a better fit subcontractor for a certain type of a job, or maybe somebody falls and breaks their legs on your competitor's job site and they're out for 3 months. It's a good idea to have relationships with multiple subcontractors who can do the same trade. And if you require them to use Builder-Trend, you can get them to bid faster and more efficiently. But at the same time, I understand some subcontractors are slow to adopt new technology, so this could be a hand-holding procedure. So just tread lightly. Also with Builder-Trend, there tends to be easier scheduling. If you drag and drop schedule items, it should hopefully automatically alert them when it's their time to start work without you having to send a one-off email every now and then. Builder-Trend is getting better and better about sending payments to subcontractors, so that's another advantage. And overall, you could use the messaging system. However, I don't have a lot of people who take advantage of that at this point, but in the long term, it could increase communication if you message within Builder-Trend. And then you can also share critical information with them quickly, like if you're using the documents tool. I can't think of many drawbacks of using Builder-Trend other than just the subcontractors who might be a little bit slow to adopt the technology. But of course, this should be spelled out in the agreement that you have with the subcontractor so that there's no confusion and no arguing. Then within your agreement, you should have the quality specifications outlined, and also you should let them know when you're going to be doing inspections. Will this be the same across all of your jobs? Is this the blanket type agreement that we talked about? What does quality look like to you and your homeowner? Will it vary from job to job? It's best if you can establish a standard level of quality that you use across all of your jobs, because if you're constantly asking the subcontractor to upgrade or downgrade certain quality items, it can lead to a lot of communication, and that can lead to some unpredicted costs on your end if you get stuck for paying too high of quality on a low cost or low budget job. And how will you communicate these levels of quality on different jobs? Is it going to be on a per job basis in Builder-Trend? Are you going to send them an email? It's not very efficient if you have to email them for every single thing that they do to let them know the caliber of quality you expect. So just think about these in your agreement so you don't have to revisit this very often. And then after they complete their work, how long are you expected to take to inspect the work? And will their payment be contingent upon your inspection of their work? Because I do recommend getting into the home site and make sure that the quality of their work is up to your standards before you release payment, which is a great segue into payment terms. What is realistic for you as you depend on draw schedules from your homeowner or client? When can you pay your subcontractor? What is that schedule like? Knowing that most jobs only, they might only have a few different draw payments, or if the homeowner is paying you directly, you might not be exactly sure when they're going to cut you the check. So let's lay those terms out from the get-go and create realistic expectations. On the flip side, what are the realistic needs of the subcontractor? If they don't get paid on time from you, will they be forced to stop work on your jobs? Or, how is that going to work? What's realistic for that subcontractor? We do need to be empathetic, knowing that they depend on us for their livelihood. And then what will that method of payment be? Paper check or electronic? Traditionally, we've always used paper checks. It's like a nice prize when they finish their work. They get your approval on that paper check. But there are some drawbacks with paper check. We've seen more fraud than ever before. We've seen people try to double deposit their paper check. So maybe they'll walk into a bank branch and deposit it there and then take a picture of it on their phone. Or if you mail a paper check, that's probably the riskiest, because then you risk a USPS worker intercepting the check and possibly trying to use it for forgery or fraud, or you risk the check just getting lost and never showing up. So there are some advantages to electronic payments. There are more electronic methods available than ever before. At our firm, at Remote CPA, we prefer Bill.com just because of the approval process and the security. And the Bill.com network is huge. So electronic is becoming more and more acceptable. However, one drawback with the Bill.com payments, if you schedule things in advance, they can be somewhat difficult to budget for, but just something to keep in mind. So all of this comes down to how long will they have to wait after your satisfactory inspection of their work in order to get paid. Normally, I think I see contractors promise net 30 with the goal of getting their subs paid around net 15. So if you create that expectation that everything will be paid on terms of net 30, when you come in at terms of net 15, you are giving them a nice, pleasant surprise. Overall, we want to use these agreements to build a long-term relationship. It's great to have dependable subcontractors that you can use over and over. The more you work together, the more familiar you become with each other, the more trust builds. So if you can develop long-term relationships with your subs, you're going to have a more successful business overall. It enables predictability in the quality of your output for your customers. So when your homeowner is showing off their beautiful finished product to their friends, and then those friends reach out to you asking for help with their construction job, they know that they'll get that same level of quality and satisfaction that their referral showed them. And it also helps you achieve routine in your workflow. If you have someone that you can depend on, you won't have to, hunt someone down when they didn't show up on the job site when they were supposed to. So overall, these agreements can be a huge asset that really help you succeed in your home building business. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.